Harper Lawson had spent years building her family business, and when her younger sister, Emily, suddenly became CEO, she thought firing Harper would be her first triumph. But Harper wasn't fazed. She knew exactly how to turn the tables. With invisible safeguards, meticulous planning, and subtle guidance, Harper orchestrated a week-long lesson in humility. As Emily stumbled through mistakes and begged for advice, Harper quietly regained control, proving that experience beats impulsive youth. This is a story of clever, satisfying revenge, where a sister's audacious power grab is met with strategic brilliance, laughter, and the ultimate lesson in respect. I never thought I'd live to see the day my little sister, Emily Lawson, would somehow wrestle control of our family business right out of our father's hands and, with the smug confidence of someone who thinks youth equals genius, promptly fire me the moment she got the CEO title, and let me tell you, I did not even flinch. I couldn't stop laughing, because Emily had always been impulsive, bratty, even a storm of ideas with no filter and zero experience in running the empire our family had built over decades, and here she was, sashaying into the executive office in her too short blazer and new high heels, thinking she could command respect just by walking into the room with the power of a title, while I, Harper Lawson, who had spent 15 years managing every client relationship, supply chain hiccup, and employee crisis with my blood, sweat, and late-night conference calls, was supposed to bow down to my kid sister like she'd invented capitalism herself, and when she handed me the pink slip with a grin that said, "Congrats, sis, your time's up," I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms, and laughed so hard it echoed off the mahogany walls, because I knew exactly what she had just stepped into, the very chaos she had no clue how to navigate, and my mind started racing with all the ways I could respond without looking like a sore ex-employee, because revenge in the family business is delicate. It has to be strategic, invisible, precise, and above all, satisfying, and over. The next few days, I watched her stumble like a newborn deer trying to figure out the boardroom, trying to micromanage department heads who had been running the company long before she was even out of college, sending out emails that contradicted one another, scheduling meetings with no agenda, and assuming that the mere fact she had inherited the CEO title meant people would obey her like magic, and it was hilarious, absolutely hilarious, because I had already set a series of traps, subtle little moves that would make her look incompetent without me ever lifting a finger. Starting with the database of suppliers I had meticulously tagged with notes and exceptions that only I knew how to navigate, so when she tried to renegotiate contracts she didn't understand, the vendors were confused, deliveries were delayed, and her credibility began to wobble, all while she strutted around thinking she was running the show, and the HR team, loyal to me quietly over the years, would politely correct her. Emily, maybe check with Harper first, and each time she huffed and rolled her eyes, I suppressed a laugh behind my coffee mug, because she didn't realize the more she tried to assert control, the more tangled she made herself in knots that only I could untangle, and then came the moment of pure genius. A little digital nudge I had set up long before her power trip began. I had created a shadow network of the company's operational software, encrypted backups, and access permissions that meant if she ever tried to change the system without proper authentication, it would freeze, lock, and log every action she took, and when she finally decided to implement her new management strategy, she hit the barrier I had laid out, suddenly locked out of the system she thought she could command with a click, and the panic on her face was priceless, eyes wide, fingers hovering over keys like she could magic her way through, while I, from my corner office, sipped my coffee and smiled, thinking, oh Emily, this is just the beginning, and I documented everything, the emails she sent in a frenzy, the phone calls she made to IT, the frantic meetings with department heads where she tried to justify her incompetence, because you see, in family business warfare, evidence is power, and power is satisfaction, and by the time I decided to step in with a polite but firm note to HR and the board, pointing out the risks of unauthorized changes, all while CCing the father she thought she could impress, she was already painted as reckless, impulsive, and unprepared, and I watched as the company subtly shifted back toward stability without me ever appearing to intervene, because true revenge is invisible, Harper style, and the crowning moment came when our father, who had been silently observing from the sidelines, called her in for a private chat, asking calmly but pointedly why she was undermining staff, why she was ignoring years of experience, and why she thought firing me would magically make her a competent CEO, and I could see it all through the glass window as she stammered, blushed, and finally muttered, I guess I rushed in too fast, and in that instant, I realized that this was peak entertainment, the sweet taste of poetic justice served in the most subtle, elegant way possible, and as the days went by, she began consulting me for everything she had tried to handle alone, From supplier contracts to payroll, and each time she sheepishly asked for my guidance, I gave her a little smirk, knowing she had learned the hard way that a title doesn't make you capable, experience does, and while she thought she had humbled me by firing me, I had quietly orchestrated a week-long lesson in humility, competence, and family respect, and I never once raised my voice or made a scene. I let her mistakes, the system I built, and the observation of everyone in the office do the talking, which was far more satisfying, because Emily's ego could not survive facing the consequences of her impulsive decisions, and by the time she admitted she needed my help, begged for insights she had previously ignored, and finally respected my years of work, I allowed her small victories, knowing full well that I held the reins, invisible but unbreakable, and when the father finally commended me privately for my professionalism and clever handling of the situation, I leaned back, smiled, and whispered to myself, sometimes you have to let them fire you to show them who's really running the show, and it was hilarious, triumphant, and utterly satisfying, because in the end, Harper Lawson didn't just survive her little sister's reckless power grab, she owned it, controlled it, and turned it into the perfect lesson in corporate karma, family hierarchy, and the fact that you can never underestimate the person who's been holding the fort for decades. And as Emily sat across from me, finally learning how to run the company with my guidance, I couldn't help but chuckle every time she nervously asked, "Do you think this is okay?" And I just smiled knowingly, because this was the day my little sister tried to fire me, and I couldn't stop laughing, not because I was cruel, but because sometimes, the universe has the most deliciously ironic sense of humor, and Harper Lawson had front row seats.